what is that we have discussed post prior to your Cat 1 examination?
Sir, Diffie-Hellman key exchange.
Correct. So I hope all of you have written well your CAT examinations, and so we will continue our discussion about Elgamal public key crypto system. This is a public key algorithm which almost appear as if it is similar to your Diffie-Hellman scheme. It is also announced somewhere around 1984, and the strength of this scheme lies with the discrete logarithmic problem, which is similar to your Diffie-Hellman technique. Okay, so you know very well that all the public key schemes, whether it is RSA, whether it is Diffie-Hellman, or whether it is Elgamal, or for that matter you take any technique, basically these techniques are based upon solving certain important mathematical problems. Security of these schemes lies in the fact that we don't have solutions. When I say solutions, the algorithms with which these problems can be solved in a polynomial time. Okay, so because that solutions are not there, the strength of these schemes lies with that particular fact that there are no solutions for these problems. Now, your public key scheme, especially RSA, if you observe, it is lies with the fact that there are no algorithms that are available to solve a particular problem. What is the problem with the RSA is based upon? It is based upon that the fact that there is no algorithm to identify prime factors of a given large number. Okay, so that is where the strength of RSA lies with. Similarly, the Diffie-Hellman, there is no algorithm that can be executed on a polynomial time on a conventional computer so that we will solve the discrete logarithmic problem. So that is the strength of Diffie-Hellman key exchange. Even your Elgamal also based upon this particular strength only. That means there are no algorithms available to solve the discrete logarithmic problem. Now, the Elgamal technique is used in various applications, including digital signatures, MIME, that is email standards, and all that. So how actually the Elgamal would work? In a similar lines of your Diffie-Hellman, wherein which you take some global values. When I say global values, these values are available to everybody. What are those values? One is the prime number, and two, its primitive root. So we have seen in the case of Diffie-Hellman, what is the primitive root of a prime number that we have discussed in the previous class. So your Elgamal also picks these two global values. One is the prime number, two, the primitive root of this prime number, and these two values are known globally. So that means when two parties wants to communicate with each other, they would have access to these two values. Okay, so now let us see how it goes, how the algorithm would work. As I've said, you have two global values. One is the prime number, another one is its primitive root. Okay, so we know what do you mean by primitive root of a prime number, that we have already discussed. Now imagine Alice and Bob want to exchange with each other. For that purpose, both Alice has to generate the key pair and Bob also has to generate the key pair. Now the scenario here is that Bob wants to communicate with Alice. So that means Bob is going to depend upon the keys of Alice. That means the public key of Alice. So for that purpose, from the global values, let us see how Alice is generating the keys. Remember, it is this particular scheme not only for Alice, but also you can apply for Bob. So now let us see for Alice, because Alice is the receiver, Bob is going to be the sender. So sender takes the receiver's public key and encrypt the values. Since it is encrypted with the receiver's public key, obviously decryption would happen with the receiver's private key. So here sender's key pair is not of much importance. That is the reason why you are having key generation by Alice. So now Alice is the receiver. So key generation by Alice, how it is going to happen? Alice is going to pick a private value called XA, and the condition is that XA should be less than the prime number, that is globally known. And remember, Alice is going to keep this value as secret. Now, from the secret value, Alice is going to calculate a public value called YA. How she is calculating? YA is equal to primitive root power the secret value at mod q. So primitive root value is alpha, and chosen private value for by Alice is XA. So alpha power XA mod q. Remember, this is the same step that we have followed even for the Diffie-Hellman. Now, with this, your key generation process is over. Alice private key is XA and public key is YA. Of course, the prime number and its primitive root are known to everybody, and hence Alice also know. So Alice public key contains the YA, of course Q and alpha, which are prime number and primitive root. And Alice is going to keep the private key with herself. Obviously, in a similar manner, Bob also would generate the key pair. Okay, can somebody tell me what could be the key generation by Bob? What would happen? Dhruv Gupta, can you please tell? Dhruv, what would be the key generation of by Bob? Rohit? Rohit? Ruchita Nathani? Ruchita? Satyanand Prasad? Yeah, Ruchita, please. What is the key generation by Bob?
In the same way, the way you have generated for Alice, like he will also select a private key whose value will be less than Q minus 1, and then he will calculate the value for YB, like we do in Diffie-Hellman.
Okay. So, a similar manner, of course, it is actually so far what we discussed is Diffie-Hellman. There is no much difference. And key generation so far, as I've said, it is like your typical Diffie-Hellman. So Alice, and of course we don't actually consider Bob. The reason is that Bob is the sender, and sender is going to consider the receiver's public key and then send it, and receiver would decrypt it with its private key, and so the sender key pair is of now much importance. But tomorrow, imagine after some time, Alice wants to send it to Bob. Now Alice would pick the key generated by the Bob. Okay, so now let us focus only on the key generation by Alice. Now key generation is done. Now, how is the encryption process? Encryption process, the sender is the Bob. Bob is going to pick the plain text. Remember, since it's the block-based encryption, first of all, the message has to be converted into a range of integers, and then you keep these messages in a set of blocks. Okay, so that is the pre-process. So now imagine that plain text is capital M. It is supposed to be less than the prime number. M should be less than Q. And now, how Bob is going to encrypt? Remember, Bob has picked the Alice public key. What is the Alice public key? YA, prime number, and its primitive root. Of course, prime number and primitive root, Alice need not tell. Even Bob can get from the global values. But Alice public key, especially the component YA, Bob is picking from the Alice public key set. Now the set is alpha, Q and YA. So now Bob has picked a random integer called small k. Okay. Remember there are two k values here. One is small k and another one is capital K. Small k is the random integer. Capital K is the key, actual key. This random integer is small k. The condition is it is supposed to be less than the prime number. It is chosen by Bob. Now Bob is going to calculate a k value called capital K. What is that k? K is equal to YA, that means public key of Alice, to the power the random integer chosen by Bob at mod Q. Okay. So the point is that Bob has created a key. Now this is that step to generate the key called K. Now what happens? Bob is creating a ciphertext called C1, wherein which C1 is equal to alpha power K mod Q. What is alpha? The primitive root of the prime number. What is small k? The random integer chosen by Bob. Now Bob is doing creating another ciphertext called C2, wherein which C2 is equal to Km mod Q. What is K? The key calculated by Bob, capital K. And what is M? The plain text, capital M at mod Q. Now if you see that these two steps, C1 and C2, C2 is actual encryption of the plain text. With what value? With the help of key value, that is K. How the K is calculated? YA power K mod Q. Now if you observe, then what is the C2? The C2 is the encrypted plain text. Then what is C1? C1 is alpha power K mod Q, wherein which alpha is your the primitive root and K is the random integer chosen by Bob. Now what is this purpose of C1? That we will see a little later. So now Bob is going to send C1 and C2 to Alice. Okay, Bob is sending C1, C2 to Alice. In this, C2 is the encrypted plaintext. C1 is some value. Okay, now Alice receives these two value, ciphertext C1, C2. Now what Alice is going to do? First, Alice has to get the key value K and then decrypt the plain ciphertext. So how K value is going to be calculated by Alice? K is equal to C1 power XA mod Q. Now what is XA? The private value or the private key of Alice, that is XA. If you notice here, the private value is XA. Now what is C1? C1 is alpha power K mod Q that was sent by Bob. So with the help of C1, the receiver is getting the key value K. Now once K value comes, the decryption process from C2 get back your plain text, that is M. So M is equal to C2 into K inverse mod Q. Okay, so this is the decryption steps followed by Alice. Are there any doubts? Are there any doubts? Now the point is, I'm sure you will be having a doubt that I have sent two ciphertext C1 and C2. How the receiver, that means Alice, is calculating the K value, that is K, capital K. Now you see the expression K is equal to C1 power XA mod Q. What is C1? alpha power k mod q. That is how C1 was calculated by the Bob. Now you substitute C1 in alpha power k mod q and perform the derivation like what we have done in the case of Diffie-Hellman. You would notice that it is nothing but the k value that is derived by the Alice. So you can notice that if you derive these equations, c power 1 power c1 xa mod q, or else the reverse process, that means you take ya power k mod q and derive, or else you take c1 power xa mod q and derive, you would be getting both are same. So while encrypting, Bob has calculated k with the help of expression ya power k mod q. During the decryption, Alice has calculated the k value with the help of the expression c1 power xa mod q. And when you derive, both these equations happen to be the same. Okay. And hence, the k value, that is k, capital K, is transformed by the Bob to Alice through encryption way. Okay, that is C1. Now, once k comes to Alice, using the k, Alice has decrypted C2. How Alice has decrypted C2? Since k is now calculated by Alice, the expression to derive M is, since calculation of the encryption happened like km mod q, you have to make it k inverse mod q, that is C2 k inverse mod q, and get the plain text M. Okay, so this is Elgamal public key crypto system. Now, if you observe closely, the k value, capital K here, is created by Bob, number one. So during the encryption process, if you notice, that means that is C2 time, while calculating C2, Bob has used capital K, which in fact he only created. Generally, the notion is during the public encryption or public key encryption, what is the notion? The notion is that the sender uses receiver's public key, encrypt it and send it. And receiver takes that message, decrypt it with its private key. That is the general notion. Now, if you notice here, what Bob has done is Bob picked the Alice public key. That means the receiver's public key. What is the receiver's public key here? Ya. And he calculated a k value called capital K. With the help of K, he performed the encryption. So that means Bob has created a separate key called K. Now this particular key is called generally a session key or one-time key. That is the terminology is used in practical applications. So this particular K is called one-time key or the session key. That means only for this particular communication, that means to encrypt that particular capital M, only K would be used. After that, you can drop that K. That means Bob drops that K. Okay. So once your plain text is dispatched through encryption, the capital K would be dropped and again a fresh keys would be generated. Okay. That's the reason why you call that K as a one-time key, or at least you maintain that K for a particular session. So it is also called as a session key in all practical applications. And as I have said, your Elgamal system is deployed in several practical applications, especially for digital signatures. Okay, is the what we are discussing, is it clear? And once you have the one-time key, you are actually performing the encryption. Okay, and this one-time key is encrypted and sent to the receiver, and receiver is getting back the one-time key. Is that discussion is clear, or you have any doubts? Please discuss now if you have any doubts. Sushant?
Yes, sir. No doubts.
So you need to understand the difference between Diffie-Hellman and Elgamal. If you notice the similarities wise, both are similar in the way that the way the key generation is happening through global public elements. Number one, because your the prime number and its primitive root are known globally. Okay, and from that key generation is happening. And what is the other similarity? Both are depending on the fact that there is no algorithm to calculate discrete logarithms. Now, what is the difference? The difference is that in Diffie-Hellman, key gets established. Here, the key is generated by the sender. That key is called a one-time key or a session key. With the help of that particular key, your sender is encrypting the message. First of all, how that key has come? The key has come with the help of public key of the receiver. And sender has created a session key or a one-time key, performed the encryption. And remember, this one-time key is encrypted. How it is encrypted? You see C1 is equal to alpha power k mod q. And now we proceed. So this is how the similarity and dissimilarity between Elgamal and Diffie. So this is another algorithm. This is another representation of how Elgamal is working. What are public key and the key generation at the side, and also so remember, a few books talks Alice is the sender and Bob is the receiver. Sometimes you may have this thing, so don't get confused with that notation. But essentially, the process is this. Okay. Now the point is, as I've said, the security of Elgamal is based on the difficulty of computing the discrete logarithms. That means when you know some public key, here what is the public key? Your YA. What you need to know, if you want to break it, you need to know XA. So how you can calculate XA? You need to perform the discrete logarithm over YA, for which we don't have algorithms to perform or to calculate this particular task. Is it this only way to break the Elgamal? No, in fact, there is another way that you can recover one-time key. Even for that particular purpose, you need to perform discrete logarithms. Okay, so and hence we don't have the algorithms to perform these attacks. But the point is that what is the attack that we have seen in the case of Diffie-Hellman? Can somebody respond?
Some man in the middle.
Is that possible over Elgamal? Look at the diagram illustration and tell me. Is man in middle possible over Elgamal? Okay, why man in middle was become possible or made possible in Diffie-Hellman? Why it was made possible over Diffie-Hellman? We discussed this point. Why one can make man in middle attack over Diffie-Hellman?
No authentication, sir.
Sorry?
No authentication of the sender.
Perfect. Perfect. Now look at the Elgamal scheme and tell me, is the same problem lies with Elgamal also, or Elgamal is able to mitigate that particular issue, and hence you don't have man in middle over Elgamal, which is, what is your answer? Man in middle is possible or not? Okay, imagine if authentication is what actually? Authentication means what actually? You are missing what in Diffie-Hellman? Yeah, authentication is correct, but what do you mean by authentication?
There's no way to verify that the sender is who they say they are.
Okay, that is true. That is true. Can you further refine that answer?
The private key of the sender is not used.
No. Private key of the sender is known to private. That fellow. So when you say authentication is the issue, the authentication means in Diffie-Hellman, the public key that I am picking. Because look at here, encryption by Bob. Bob has used what? While performing encryption, Bob has used what? Which component of Alice he has used?
Public key.
Public key of
Alice.
Okay. The question is, what is the public key of Alice? How Bob knows? That is the authentication problem. Okay. Because Alice public key is known publicly. What is the guarantee that the key that is known now to Bob is Alice public key? That is the authentication problem. Okay. So look at your Diffie-Hellman. That is what is your problem. Now tell me, Elgamal is also having the same problem? Elgamalase is also having the same problem or not? Hello, yeah, come on, respond.
Sir, I think that since while doing encryption, every time a new value of k is chosen, so it overcomes the man-in-middle vulnerability.
Correct. That is what you are thinking. But every time, in order to calculate that k value, what is used? What is used?
So public key of Alice.
Yeah, you have still the same problem, right? See, you may be having a session key which is used only for one time or at least for a duration of that session, and then you drop that key. So you are maintaining the strength of that key. It's okay. But first of all, your fundamental problem that you do not know whether YA is the public key of Alice or not. Imagine if I capture that YA and I am sending it to Bob saying that, look, this is this is YA. So nobody knows. So there is no authentication. So the same problem with Elgamal also, like similar to your Diffie-Hellman, your the Elgamal scheme has the same problem of authentication. Okay. So there are certain advantages of Elgamal over Diffie-Hellman because as you have noticed and somebody has said, it is using that one-time key, so it is quite advantageous. But still, your authentication problem is still there. You cannot you cannot deny that, and the vanilla flavor of the Elgamal is having the same problem. Okay, so these are all the various public key schemes. We have seen what is meant by public key algorithms, and we have seen RSA, we have seen Diffie-Hellman, we have seen Elgamal, and we have seen attacks on all these schemes. There is one important scheme called elliptic curve cryptography, and that we will be discussing maybe after some time. I need some later stretch of class. We will be discussing that later sometime. So now we will continue our discussion with the key management. Okay. So now we will discuss about key management and distribution. Remember, this is about, first of all, what do you mean by key management and distribution? In both schemes of public key as well as the symmetric key. That means symmetric key, that means you are using the same key for the encryption purpose and the decryption purpose. Public key, you are using two keys. In both schemes, related to key, you have certain issues. What is the issue with symmetric key? When two entities wants to communicate, how to establish the common key? That is the main problem with the symmetric key schemes. So we can have the encryption with the same key and the decryption also with the same key. How this key gets established between both sender and receiver? That is the problem. Now, what is the problem with public key scheme? The public key scheme we have seen, especially with the Diffie-Hellman and as well as Elgamal. How do you know? How do you validate that this is the public key? This is the public key of the center or the other party. So the key management distribution is about delivering the key between the two parties who wants to exchange the data without allowing others to see the key. That means this is about the symmetric key schemes. So for symmetric encryption schemes to work, the two parties, especially the sender and receiver, should exchange the same key and the key must be protected from the others. One way is you can do that with the help of Diffie-Hellman, but Diffie-Hellman itself is having certain vulnerability with regard to manipulator. And remember, while using symmetric key schemes, one of the desirable property is that this particular common key between sender and receiver should be frequently changed. Like, you use like as a session key, drop that key after particular session time is expired, or use that for a particular duration of the session. Okay. So how I can do that? Okay, how I can exchange my key? So for that purpose, there are various ways. When A wants to send to B its key, A can select the key and physically deliver it to B. But we are living in a digital world, so rule out the first method. See the second scheme. A third party can select the key and physically deliver it to A and B. That means A and B are in the communication. Now they identified a third party. There could be a third party who says that, look, this is your keys. Okay. Again, these are two common keys. Now, how this key would be delivered? The delivery would be through physical means. Okay, that is another way of doing it. Rather, the third scheme is if A and B, that means sender and receiver, have earlier communicated it through a secured means, then what they can do, they can use that secured means and then exchange the key and drop that particular secured means and start with this new key. That means, imagine if A and B are already having a session which is the encrypted with one symmetric key. Now create a new key called K1, exchange K1 with the help of that original key that they have, and once K1 is exchanged, drop K. But first of all, how far K would have been got exchanged? That is another problem. Okay, so that is the third scheme. The fourth one is if A and B each has an encrypted connection to third party C, C can deliver the key on the encrypted link. So this is fourth one is you need to understand little carefully. The difference with the second one and the fourth one is that third party is physically delivering the key. Okay, so that means, imagine you are sending some courier to your home. DTDC is your courier fellow. What DTDC is doing, he is giving you here at the Vellore one key, and he also gives a key to your parents at your native place, and then now you keep the items in the box, lock it, and then send it. So he has physically delivered. Look at that, the last option. Now it is not physical delivery. The communication channel between the third party to the A, similarly third party to the B is not physical, but rather it is an open communication, but this communication channel is encrypted. Okay, so that is the fourth one. So if A and B are having an encrypted communication connection between them and the third party, then the third party can deliver the key through this encrypted channel, and A and B would have a common. So this is how symmetric keys would be distributed. Okay, so I will pause here. We will continue this discussion from the next class. Any doubts on the key distribution?